For good or ill, pornography use is now a mainstream sexual intercourse in Western society, especially among younger adults. Much of the traffic on the Internet involves the delivery of sexually explicit material to non-public devices. Likewise, there are any number of websites condemning its use and offering advice for overcoming porn addiction. Research thus far on the consequences of porn use has been colored by the biases the researchers already had at the outset. Psychologists who wish to find harm in porn viewing will definitely find it, while those trying to find no harm or maybe potential benefits can easily discover evidence of those in their data also. And while there's no doubt that some people that use porn suffer from psychological and relational problems, many of us have found ways to integrate their porn use into their daily lives as a healthy component of their sexuality. One of the best fears is that porn viewing will somehow interfere with or maybe replace sexual relationships with the real citizenry. But just how does porn use affect our ability to create and maintain intimate relationships with other people? This is the research question that Canadian psychologist Marie-Pierre Vaillancourt Morel and her colleagues explored in a piece of writing recently published within the Journal of Social and Private Relationships. In fact, there already is an in-depth literature examining the question of how porn affects relationships. However, as Vaillancourt Morel and colleagues point out, all studies thus far have suffered from a variety of weaknesses. First, most studies ask people to report on their porn use over some specified period within the past. This kind of response relies heavily on autobiographical memory, which is known to be unreliable. Furthermore, respondents could also be biased toward either underestimating or overestimating their porn use, counting on their personal attitudes toward the subject. Second, studies typically only survey one member of the connection. Do you actually skills your partner feels about your porn use? Few couples ever have such open discussions about sensitive issues like this. Third, studies that specialize in the correlation between porn use and relationship satisfaction typically only measure these at one point in time. If a study finds that frequent porn users are dissatisfied with their relationships, we don't know which came first. It might be that porn viewing makes people less proud of their partners, but it could even be that they resort to porn to fill a void in their intimate relationships. Finally, virtually all studies so far have only checked out heterosexual couples. Prior research shows that men have more favorable attitudes toward and admit to using porn far more than women do. However, the dynamics may play out quite differently in same-sex male-male or female-female relationships. To overcome these weaknesses, the study conducted by Vaillancourt Morel and colleagues recruited over 200 couples, including both mixed-sex and same-sex relationships. Each partner within the relationship agreed to require part during a 35-day diary study during which they skilled a group of questions delivered to their smart phone each evening. These questions assessed 4 variables: whether they had used porn that day, how satisfied they were with their relationship that day, how much they desired to possess sex with their partner that day, whether they had engaged in sexual intercourse with their partner that day. By collecting data during this way, the researchers were ready to tease out both causal relationships and inter-partner dynamics. The most important finding to return out of the info analysis was the very fact that porn use was completely unrelated to relationship satisfaction. In other words, there was no evidence that porn viewing led to decreases in how happy people are with their partners, nor did they appear to be using porn as how of creating up for deficiencies. in their relationships. The only exception was that folks were less likely to use porn the day after that they had had sex with their partner. This finding suggests a diminished interest in porn after sex, instead of using porn as a substitute for it. A commonly expressed concern is that frequent porn viewing can lead people to perceive their partners as less attractive. After all, who can compete with the hard bodies and voracious sexual appetites we see in porn? However, the info from this study suggests a different, and more complex, dynamic is happening. Although women overall view porn less frequently than men, they're also more likely to feel an increased desire to have sex with their partner on a day that they use porn, and they're more likely to follow through thereupon desire. This finding that porn puts women within the mood for sex held for those in both mixed-sex and same-sex relationships. In other words, women seem to use porn as a kind of foreplay. When it came to men and porn use, however, the result was more complex. Men in relationships with other men also showed increased desire for his or her partner and were more likely to have sex with them on days that they had viewed porn. However, men in relationships with women were less likely to possess sex with their partners when they had used porn that day. This last results in line with the majority of research on how porn affects relationships, as is to be expected as long as these studies have focused on heterosexual couples. It's quite possible that folks in traditional mixed-sex relationships easily fall under socially accepted ways of brooding about sexuality and intimacy. In contrast, those in same-sex relationships, because they defy social norms, also are more likely to be open about their sexuality and discuss sexual activity with their partner more readily. In the end, it appears that whether porn viewing helps or hurts intimate relationships depends instead on the attitudes the partners have about it. If you already believe porn to be evil, you'll likely suffer guilt and remorse over your own use, also as feelings of anger and betrayal over finding your partner using it. But if you have open and healthy attitudes about your own and your partner's sexuality, then you're likely to use porn in ways that enhance your relationship with your significant other.